personally in Hawaii. Congratulations. And if couple of announcements. If you're going to come to the I-Day, you need to pay up today, or if you can, you reach out to me and I give you my mailing address. You can post the check to my address. The next meeting, you will get an update from the chapter email ID. The CPCU classes will be starting on October 3rd, every Monday morning from 7:15 to 8:15 at Canas. If you know somebody who's interested, please do refer them to me, or you can reach out to the chapter email ID. That's one good thing that's starting from the chapter, so please spread the word. And I am super excited to introduce Tony and thank him for accepting to speak to our chapter this afternoon. Like you see, Tony has a bunch of alphabets next to his name, and I'm not going to go about reading about it. I heard about Tony and I read about him in his blog, Insure Nuts. I would highly recommend all of you to go there and check out to see what it is about. He's a blogger, he's a speaker, he is so passionate about our industry, and that is the main reason I reached out to him and I really wanted him to come and speak to my chapter. He holds a bachelor's in Management Information System and an MBA from Iowa State University. He's very involved in the insurance industry. He was the annual meeting speaker in 2014 in Anaheim on the same topic. And again, he's presented the topic in Phoenix in 2014 at the Leadership Summit of the CPCU Society. He is being featured by The Edge, the national magazine for the CPCU Society, the newsletter for Iowa CPCU Society, American Agents and Brokers, and was named as one of the top young agents of 2013 by Property Casualty 360. His energy is contagious, so I would just thank you so much. Thank you.
So you might want to move to the seat. There we go. So you can see a little bit better. Okay. So thank you for having me, first of all. Second of all, as you might have guessed, this is not the usual talk that you get at a CPCU meeting. So we'll do kind of everything backwards from what you normally do. So the first thing I want you to do is take your phone out and take it out personally moment, because we're going to be interacting a little bit with and even though it's a small group, I do think it's more fun to do it with the interaction. So take your phone out and text my name, Antonio Canas 551, to that number, 22333. You only have to do that once, and after that you'll be participating in the interactive features of the presentation. So Antonio Canas 551 to the number 22333. For the baby boomers in the audience, look to the millennial next to you if you need help. If needed. Actually, now that everybody has iPhones, just about I know most people nowadays have no trouble participating. So you'll get a message like this one when you do send that message to participate. Okay, if anybody needs help, let me know. And by the way, as a good millennial, I don't wear a watch, and my phone is recording this. So kind of keep me posted on the time, as you know, if we're half an hour, 20 minutes, or whatever. That way I can kind of make sure that I hit everything I want to hit. Okay. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to sign up to participate, because we will be using it. Okay. So let's start. Of course, it goes right to the wrong one. This one. Okay. So, in order to test the technology, the first question is, what do you think of my outfit? Okay, and what we're doing is texting that number, 22333, with one of those codes. So if you think my outfit is awful, text awful. If you think it's a little out there, text weird. If you care about what I'm here to say and not what I'm wearing, text ideas. And if you love it, text love to 22333. It looks like we're getting some of them. This is always a really fun part of the presentation. By the way, it's anonymous. I don't know who texts what. And awful has one in the past, so it's okay, it won't break my heart. It's mostly to make sure the technology works. What I was going for, and I've warned this every time I give in this session, this is the 6th or 7th time, what I was going for is a little out there. And the reason I'll explain it through a presentation why I don't wear this to my day-to-day job, or to interviews. And I'll explain kind of the logic behind it here in a little bit. So let's move on to the second poll, which wasn't loaded. Okay, so since we'll be talking about generations, and especially about the millennials, which generation are you a member of? And I've got the years there. So if you were born between 1922 and 1945, text traditional. If you were born between 46 and 64, text boomer. If you're one of the Gen Xers, born between 65 and 80, text X. And if you're one of my millennials or Gen Yers, text Y. I myself was born in 1982, and I'm somewhere on the edge of millennial and Gen Xer, even though I lean millennial in a lot of the ways I behave. So looks like today we've got somewhat of a Gen X heavy audience. As an industry, the numbers that have been published, we're a very boomer heavy industry. And it makes sense because demographically, the boomers make up 80 million people. The Gen Xers are 25% less people at 60 million. And then the millennials are 80 million. So you've got a very big generation with the boomers, and a smaller generation with the Xers, and now a much bigger generation with the millennials. So again, it's important to realize in our industry we're still very boomer heavy, and that's going to be changing in the next few years. And we'll talk a lot about that and what that means for your companies and your chapter and the industry in general. Okay, so. Also, since this is kind of a small group, this is supposed to be very interactive, so please laugh at the jokes and participate. Feel free to interrupt. Have fun with it. That's part of the idea. Okay. So, how many years have you been in the insurance industry? Less than 5, you're a rookie or text rookie. 6 to 10, text some. 11 to 19, text veteran, and 20 or more, text expert. So, as an industry, our average age is 60 years old, and most of those people have been in the same in the industry for their entire working careers. And I've worked at this point, I think, 4 different carriers, and I have ran into so many people who have been in the same carrier or the same agency for a very long time. In fact, in my little Liberty office where I'm working nowadays, 200 people, we celebrated in the last 2 weeks before Hawaii. We celebrated a 35th anniversary and a 40th anniversary. And I think that's awesome. I think that's really amazing that historically we have been such a great place to work at, that people stay in the same companies forever. And part of what we need to understand is that this next generation that is soon going to be a huge part of our industry, and it's already a big part of the industry, is very different, and they're all likely to stay in the same company for a very long time. If we do things right, we'll be able to keep them in the industry for a very long time. But we need to do things right to assure that. But they're very unlikely to stay in the same company for a very long time. So we're moving between a very loyal generation who has stayed for a long time to one that doesn't look like they will. Okay, I think that's. Oh, one more question in this section before moving on. Okay, and this one's really important too. How many years do you plan to continue working full time? So if you're retiring in less than 5, text golf. If you're staying here 6 to 10 more years, text few. 11 to 15, text lots. And 16 or more like myself, I expect to work another 30 probably, text long. So we'll give a little time for this one to come in. Okay, so it looks like most of you are planning to stay for 16 or more years. which means that we might have a lot of boomers in the audience who are working into their 90s. But then again, today we're heavy on Xers, so that actually makes sense. So for the boomers in the audience, one of the reasons we invited you here today is so we can tell you that you can't retire. And the reason you can't retire is because we're not ready as an industry. We're not ready to lose you on your many, many years of experience. We need to make sure that all that institutional, all that industry and technical knowledge that you gained over the last many, many years gets transferred successfully to the next generations. And the second half of the presentation, I'll be talking about the things that we can do to grow our millennials. And if you do those things, we'll give you your right to retire back. Okay, so that is it for the surveying part of this part of the presentation. Okay, so hopefully that was fun. Hopefully that was interesting. Okay, so throughout this presentation, I need you to remember two things. Okay, number one, boomers, you raised us. So you're partially responsible. And number two, your kids are, millennials, and they're out there driving another industry insane. Just like your millennials might be driving insane right now. So let's keep that in mind as we kind of go over how we ended up in where we're at. Okay. So we did the generation surveys. Okay. When I presented this in Anaheim at the 2014 annual meeting, which is one of the funnest times I've ever had, I did all the surveying, and I had every millennial I met during the first 3 days of the conference. I really encouraged them to come to the meeting, and I said, hey, I really need you there to back me up. And many of them came. And then I had one last question, which I don't have today because we were a small group, which was millennials only. Before you worked in insurance, what did you think of the insurance industry? And this came up live. So in front of hundreds of people, live, I think this is the reason that I haven't been invited to do it again. Okay, so, and this is well backed up by the research. There's a really good paper. There's a really good paper from Deloitte about how the millennials feel about insurance, and it's just not good. They think that our product is unnecessary. They think that our industry is boring. They don't think of us as a career, and they think that insurance is only about selling. They don't realize that there's a ton of jobs that are not directly selling. So that's something we just kind of need to be aware that we're trying to attract a generation that it's starting with a bad perspective on the industry. Okay, so the presentation, there's very little in the slides. The slides are really mostly for you to take a quick laugh and to remind me what part of the presentation comes next. Okay, but there's very little in the slides, and most of the presentation is told by stories. So this is one of my favorite ones. Those of you who have been here for a long time, have you ever had to approach one of your younger employees and had a conversation with them, and at the end of the conversation, when they left, you were left with this idea that they had no idea what you were talking about? Okay? Yeah. Okay. So you did an actual thing, right? You wrote them a memo in cursive, and you left it on their desk. We weren't taught cursive in school. It's just they quit teaching it a few years back. So the millennial gets back to his desk, finds the note, can't read it. So they find a Gen Xer to translate. It's somewhere in the middle who does read cursive, and they're a professional. They want to respond to their boss, and so they send you a text message or a tweet back. That's that's what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with is different communication styles. That's a lot of what we're trying to talk about is the different communication styles and just awareness of the different communication styles. It's because of the way we were raised, basically. Boomers, when you were born, and probably a lot of Gen Xers too, when you were born, you were carried home. You were taken home from the hospital probably in your mom's arms, in a car that didn't have airbags, that had a metal bumper, and if your parents really loved you, they cracked open the window while they spoke. Right? It's kind of how things work. When I grew up, and when my generation grew up, and especially the kids a little bit younger than me, I'm 33 now, but especially the kids a little bit younger than me that are coming into the industry right now, when we were growing up, things were different. Things were very different. When I was 10, I asked for a skateboard for Christmas. My mom's a doctor, and I'm the oldest, the only child at the time, and she was very overprotective. So I got my skateboard for Christmas, and I also got a very strict rule that I could only use it wearing a giant helmet, giant knee pads, and giant elbow pads. And we're not talking like sporty ones, we're talking like giant pads. That's kind of what I look like, very much what I look like. So we grew up in a different world, basically, from what you guys did, and that led us to think differently and communicate differently. Okay. Boomers, when you turned 18, your parents met you at the door. They were married to each other, and they said something like, "John, we're very proud of you. You're 18 now. We're very proud of you, and we love you. We're very proud of you, but you're 18 now. So go to college, join the military, get married, get another job, just get out of here." Right? Pretty much. Right? That's pretty right. When I told the story in Anaheim, somebody raised their hand, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And they told the story that when they graduated high school, their parents got them a set of luggage. I had no idea, but apparently it's a tradition in some parts of the country. We don't give millennials a set of luggage anymore when they graduate high school. And does anybody know why we don't give millennials a set of luggage when they graduate high school? Because we don't want them to easily come back. So the boomers got this speech at graduating high school, and 80 million boomers ran into the working world, the military and college, and they've been out working us ever since. When we turned 18, yeah, stay that way. When we turned 18, it was a little bit different. Our parents met us at the door. They made a special appearance for it because they were not married to each other, statistically, for a lot of us. And they said something like, "Tony, we love you, we're so proud of you, but you're 18 now, so as long as you're going to college, we'll continue helping you out." And 80 million millennials went into college, some of us for a 7-year associate degree. And we are now getting to the industry with a very different perspective on life than generations before us. Also, I'd like to make a quick point. Where's my chart? Okay, there it is. Sorry, that chart was supposed to be first. This is not a key feature of the presentation, but I do want to make a point of it. From 1980 to, I think, 2010, the cost of college increased by 1,130%. So that's 11 times as expensive. So that has led our generation to be heavily in debt for our education. So we're the most dedicated generation ever when it comes to number of college degrees, but we're also the most in debt for that education. So that also affects how we see things and how we see work, and the likelihood of leaving a job for a small raise, things like that are affected by that. So this is the only slide that has a lot of numbers, and I just added it today. Normally I just make up the numbers, but I figured it was better to have real numbers. So 70% of overall graduates working today have student loans. With millennials, it's about 90%. 83% of employees say that student loans would influence where they decide to work. Average monthly payment is $638. Mine's a little bit higher than that. Think about that. That's a mortgage. That's more than a car payment. That's 3 times what I pay for my car payment. And the average debt is $61,000. That has about tripled just in the last 10 years, the average debt of college kids coming out of school. So the good old strategy of working part-time or working full-time in the summer and paying for school, it wasn't possible for us. So keep that in mind as we talk about some of the ways of retaining millennials. Okay, so record student debt and graduating into a recession, basically boomerang kids. So do any of you have college grads who still live at home with you? No? Okay, good. You guys did a great job. About 30% of college graduated millennials today live with their parents. That is the highest number we have ever had in the history of the country. So that makes it also harder for them to mature kind of at the same ages as previous generations matured. We're taking longer to grow. We're taking longer to get married, longer to have kids. Talking to you today is a 33-year-old millennial, not married, no kids, not a homeowner. I barely own a car. So just we've matured at different speeds because of the way that our early lives went. Okay. The way I want to think about it is millennials are like a different culture. Okay, that makes it easier to understand the differences. I read a story at some point, and I'm not sure which book I read it in because I read a lot and I have a really bad memory. But an American speaker went to Japan to speak, hopefully better dressed than me, and he finished his presentation, and his Japanese host asked him how it went. And the speaker said it was awful. They fell asleep. And his host explained that in the Japanese culture, when you're really paying attention, you close your eyes. So it's just a cultural difference. They hadn't fallen asleep. He had been very successful. So when you're in a meeting and the millennial won't stop playing on his phone, he might be distracted. He might be on Twitter. He might be on Facebook. He might be taking notes. It's hard to know the difference. And now, I want you to know that when I talk to college student groups, and I try to talk to Gamma Iota Sigma whenever I can, and to MBA clubs, and I try to talk to the younger crowd whenever I can, and in the blog we talk a lot to the younger crowd, we tell them not to do this. And we tell them to dress properly, and we kind of try to help them behave in the way that you would expect them to behave. But just so you know, it might not be that they're distracted. They might be very engaged. They're just different in the way they show it. Okay, so there's the texting millennial. Okay. This is one of my favorite slides. In fact, it's my Facebook profile picture. It's myself standing in front of the slide at the Ohio Insurance Education Day last year, because it always gets a good laugh. And everybody knows that millennials are tech savvy, but the interesting thing, and this all comes from some research from the generational dynamics group, Jason Dorsey's group. I'll talk about him quite a bit in a little bit. We're not tech savvy. We're tech dependent. We don't know how Twitter works. We don't know how our iPhone works. We just know we can't live without it. So keep that in mind as we proceed, especially in the way that we treat them at work. Keep in mind that if you prohibit them from having their cell phone at their desk, or if you block access to Facebook and the work computer, that won't make them more productive. It'll just make them leave. So what we're facing in the industry, and we've been talking about this for at least 5 or 6 years. At the Leadership Summit 5 years ago, we were already talking about this. It's a demographic crisis, basically. We are a mature industry, partially because we're such a great place to work at. People stay here for a long time. And so our average age is 60. The average CPCU is 54. And those people are retiring. And we've been expecting this wave of retirements, and we're about to get hit by it. It's starting already. But basically, the boomers the last boomer turned 50 last year. And the oldest boomer is very much retirement age. So right now we're seeing the boomers who are 65 retiring, and also a lot of the boomers who are now 70 stayed and worked for longer than they wanted to because of the crash of 2008, 2009. Their 401ks took a dive, and they stayed for longer. Now, the economy has recovered, the stock market has recovered, their 401ks have recovered, so we're gonna see a big wave of retirements at the same time. So not only the 65-year-olds who expect to retire right now, but the ones who stayed a little longer. And they're all retiring kind of at the same time. And we need to make sure that that knowledge transfer happens. Okay, so average age in the insurance agent is 59, actually it's 60 now. This is the slide that I want everybody to remember, okay? By 2020, 50%, that's 4 years from now, 50% of the workforce in the States is gonna be composed of millennials. Because we're such a big generation and because of boomers retiring. 50%, for those of you who are not good at math like myself, that's every other. So imagine that, imagine your office when 50% of your employees are stuck on their phone the entire day, have a hard time showing up on time, have a hard time showing up to interviews dressed properly, and we need to figure out how to make this work, right? And this is in the overall workforce, given given that our industry is more mature than that, in insurance, it'll probably be worse than that, it'll probably be about 60%. And if we don't, that's my, out of the thin air number, but it kind of makes sense. I'm hoping to see a number from somebody soon, but yeah, 50% of the overall workforce. Okay. Have you ever found yourself thinking they have to pay their dues? Okay. I can't blame you. I can't blame you. And I want you to remember, I want you to leave here knowing two things about the whole millennials paying their dues. Number one, we want to. We might not know how. And we'll talk a lot about that, about how to help us understand how to pay our dues. And number two, and this is, I think, the biggest point of the entire presentation, is understanding that the entry-level job today in the insurance industry is very different from the entry-level job 20 or 30 years ago. And I'm not very familiar with Alabama, but I'll talk about some other areas of the country, and hopefully it's somewhat related. 20 or 30 years ago, the quintessential entry-level job in our industry was a multi-lines claims adjuster, whether in office or on the field, was a personal lines and farm underwriter, maybe a personal lines and commercial underwriter. Do those kind of sound like your first jobs? Somewhat? Yeah? Okay. For some very, very lucky people, their first job in the industry was the Allied School, especially those in Des Moines, Iowa. The Allied School used to hire new college grads, bring them from all over the country, bring them to Des Moines, Iowa, give them an apartment for a year, and basically teach them insurance for a year. For the first 6 months of that, you didn't even know if you were going to go into claims or underwriting. And then the second 6 months of that, you'd be trained in underwriting or claims or whatever area. Those programs don't exist anymore. And most of those jobs that were the classic entry points into insurance don't really exist anymore. Now, our typical entry-level job in insurance is something like a call center, something like a processing center. I spent a year of my life nationwide as a senior medical claims adjuster, doing nothing but medical bills. Not the liability interview, not the rental car, not the material damage, not writing the estimate for the car, not the third-party injury, only the medical bill for the first-party injury. Anybody with those claims can tell you that is incredibly boring. But the big point is not just that it's boring, is how do you pay your dues in a very, very thin call center style job? I could have been the best call center guy ever. I would still be there. I happened to get some really good advice. I lucked into some really good advice, and that's why I'm here and not there. And earlier, I was asked what the idea of the blog is, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. The blog is the advice that I wish I had when I started, basically. Okay. So just remember that when you're thinking they have to pay their dues, it's hard to pay your dues in a call center type role or in a claims role where you only handle one very, very small piece of the pie. Nationwide has several hundred adjusters who are NILC adjusters, no injury liability claims. All they do is the recorded interview. They don't ever pay a claim. All they do is the recorded interview and the liability decision. How are you going to become a well-rounded claims person, let alone a well-rounded insurance person, doing a job like that? And I'm not saying that we should go back to the old way of multi-line adjusters and farm and personal lines underwriters combined. We can't. We can't because our expense ratios won't let us. It's too expensive. But we need to figure out a way to take the jobs we have today and make them engaging and help us grow those kids that we're getting by the thousands out of college so that they stay for more than a couple of years. And so that they're there when we need them as the boomers retire. Okay. There was a national survey. I have a hard time with that word. A national survey where we asked, where a big magazine asked HR professionals and millennials if millennials are loyal at work. Okay. So millennials answered, 82% of them said that they are loyal at work. Any guesses for the HR answer? Flip the numbers. What's that? 41, 20, 19, okay. What's that, 16? 16, we've got some optimists in the crowd. I'm a big optimist myself, and this one blew me away. And I think, was 14 the lowest one? Who, I think you said.
Was it 41?
Okay, so 16 is the lowest one? Good job. Because the answer came back at 1%. So 1% of the surveyed HR professionals said that millennials are loyal at work. Okay. So there's obviously a big disconnect here between how we see ourselves and how the company is seeing us. So I want to give you the secret as to why this is happening, and it'll help put things into focus. The problem is we have different definitions of loyalty. For the boomers and even most of the Gen Xers, loyalty meant I came, I stayed, I grew, I got my gold watch, and I'll retire from here, right? And those are those amazing people who are celebrating 35, 40 years in the same company. Millennials don't see loyalty that way. For millennials who grew up seeing their parents getting downsized from their lifelong jobs and losing their pensions, loyalty is defined as I worked hard while I was there. Okay? I have had 7 jobs in 7 years. Each job a little better than the last one. The reason for that is because I started in a call center. Halfway through my MBA, I started in a call center in 2009. And the only way to get to where I'm at today is jumping often. Because nobody was going to promote me from the call center to middle market underwriting or to being a sales manager or one of the really cool jobs I wanted to do. So, but I worked really hard in each of those jobs. I did. That's why I got all those designations. From my perspective, I am very loyal to Nationwide, where I spent 4 years in 4 different jobs. Even though I left, I think I was very loyal because I worked really hard there while I was there. So a different definition of loyalty. So how can we take their view of loyalty and our view of loyalty and make it into something that helps us grow together, helps us grow the company, the industry, and the employee as a professional. Okay. So the big question that I want you to lose sleep over before you retire is where will our future leaders come from? Okay. And for those of you in companies that have pensions, which still exist in our industry, it basically, if I don't know how to run the company and you're gone, how much is your pension worth? Keep that in mind. So it'll help us all if we manage to do this transition of knowledge in a successful way. So kind of a review. So millennials are interested in workforce with more education. But the other 2 points are much less known. Okay. Not only do we have more education, we have much less work experience, and we have much less life experience. The reason for that is because we were raised by boomers telling us to follow our dreams, telling us to be involved in as many extracurriculars as we could, and to focus in school instead of working while we were young, like a lot of the boomers did. So we've now graduated college, but that millennial coming in to interview with you, or you just hired at 23, 24 years old, this might be his first professional job. Not only that, he might not have actually worked much in the normal entry-level jobs that taught you your work habits and your work ethic. And also, we have much less life experience because we're getting married later, we're having kids later, we're buying houses later. So that 24-year-old, you're thinking of yourself when you were 24, his life experience has been very different. He's probably not as much of an adult or as mature as you were at his age. So let's keep that in mind. I love this part of the, and actually, I started before, right? I do. Okay, so, don't look at too late. I kind of shut my hand. Okay. So, at what age does a person become an adult? So, text A for 18 or earlier, B for 21, C for 25, and D for 30. She probably doesn't think so either. Right. That's what we're going to talk about. So it looks like 21 is coming in strong. Interesting. The last few times I've done the presentation, 18 comes in stronger.
Age of majority in Alabama is 19.
19, not 18? Can you vote at 19 or 18?
18.
Okay, so what does age of majority mean then?
Well, like if you've got a guardianship or something like that, it goes to 19.
Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting. I had no idea.
I think there's only one other state.
Okay, so so 21 or so. So basically, you guys think that if you can drink, you're an adult, which is a fair way to see it. So you might have already seen it because I kind of blew it, but usually it gets a big reaction. According to the surveys of millennials think that they become adults at age 30. So your 24-year-old who doesn't behave like an adult, she probably doesn't see herself as an adult either. Okay? And how long do you have to be at a job before considering the long term? I didn't make a survey for this one, but give me some numbers. How long? No, from your perspective. From your perspective, how long do you have to be at a job before it's a long-term job? It counts. What's that? A couple of years? 5 years. 5. I've heard when I've done this before. I've heard a lot of 5s, a lot of 7s. I heard a 2 here. That's very open-minded.
I saw it.
What's that?
I saw it when you looked it up.
Oh, okay. So again, in the same national survey, how long do you have to be at a job before considering long-term? Millennials answer 11 months. Okay. So let me bring it all together for you. Let me connect the dots so you can really get the aha. Okay. So that 24-year-old who's coming in for the interview, or who you just hired, doesn't have much work experience because he focused on being a member of every club during high school and college instead of working. Doesn't have much life experience because he's not married yet. He doesn't own a house. He might not even own a car, depending on what part of the country. I'm guessing in Alabama you probably do own a car, and they don't consider themselves an adult for the next 6 years. So you're thinking, at 24, I was much more responsible, I was much more professional, I was much more experienced. Why are you such a... either with your daughter or with your employee. That's the why. That's the why. Okay. So now, how do we grab this population that is soon making up 50% of our employees, maybe more than that, and make it work? Okay. So also a survey by McKinsey, which was contracted by the institutes and Loman, found, asked millennials, what do you look for at work? Okay? Because remember, they don't think that they want to work in insurance. They think that it's boring. Okay? So, this is a big audience participation part of the presentation. Okay, so for each thing, I'm going to ask you whether we have that or not in insurance. Okay, so do we have challenging work insurance?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So we're one another. Okay? Do we have the potential to make a positive impact on the world?
Yes.
Okay? More than just a profit, right? Okay? Especially if you work at a mutual. But either way. Okay? Do we have space to grow? People who have been here for 30 years. This is an industry where you can really grow. Right? Yeah? Come on, get excited. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Do we have flexible schedules? I think this one is it depends, right? I was a field rep for a while. I had a very flexible schedule. I work from home on Fridays. That's very valuable to me. My girlfriend who works in the industry can work from home any day she wants. I think that's very valuable to her. We get lots of vacation time, right? About 18 days on average for a new employee in this industry. That's better than most industries. And if the main thing you want from your career is a flexible schedule, I think we have it. You have to pay your dues first, right? Is that fair? Not every job, but you can get to those kind of jobs.
Sure,
Okay. And the last thing that the millennials said they wanted was to work with the latest technology. Do we have this many insurance? Okay. So you're paying attention. Good. So no, we don't have that last one. We're working on it. Most carriers and most agencies are investing heavily on bringing us into the 20th century. Someday into the 21st. So we don't have that one. But the point that I want to make is, when we ask the millennials what they want at work, we have almost all of it. They just don't know it, right? So now that you realize this, help us get the word out, and help the millennials understand, whether they're in college or whether they're just starting in insurance, that everything they want is here. The problem is, it might not be here in that first job, especially that call center job. So let's help them grow out of those first couple of levels, and then they'll have everything that they want. Okay. By the way, the last section of the Dilbert replies to the millennial. I do have a laptop, and the millennial says, "Welcome to 1990." Okay. So how am I doing on time? How much time do I have left?
1:10, so maybe, it depends on everybody.
Okay, 15 minutes or so? Yeah? Okay, we can do it. We can do it. I'll just accelerate from here. We'll go really fast. Okay, so this is the presentation. We'll talk about the solution. So hopefully, I've helped you understand why this is a big issue, and more so than just, those darn millennials get off my yard. It is a big issue for our industry. Don't retire before helping us fix it, especially if you like your pension, because if I don't know how to run the company, how much is your pension worth? Okay, so the solutions, I focus very much on cheap or free ways to engage the millennials. Most of the ideas actually come from Jason Dorsey's book, Why Size Your Business? Why, the letter Y, Size Your Business. The first half of the book, he makes a case as to why you should, and the second half, he gives some solutions. I just give them an insurance focus. But solution number one is the first day of job, the first day at work is crucial. I've had a first day in 4 or 5 carriers now. And my first day has always been lots of HR paperwork. That's not a very engaging first day. Okay, so here's an idea. How about we bring them in on the first day, and their computer is ready, their business cards are ready, they're getting business cards, that's the big one. Regardless of the role, they're getting business cards. We meet them at the door and say, hey Tony, very excited to have you here. We're very excited that you chose to come work for us. I got your business cards right here. This means that you now represent us and we now represent you. We are so excited that you are now part of the Farm Bureau family, or the State Farm family, or the Gallagher family, or the Nationwide family, or this agency's family. That business card is big because it shows them that this is not a job, this is a career, and that they spent several years in college and $40,000 of student loans to get a career, not a job. And to a big carrier, 500 business cards cost like $17. The cost is so negligible. And they might, especially if they're not client facing or they're on the phones, they might never give one out to a customer. But they will give one out. Anybody's guess? What's that? To their mom, that's right. They will give one to their mom. And for about 30% of them, it'll be when mom comes to pick them up after work today. Okay. The other thing that you can do is you can have a clear and objective evaluation system. Now, I know that chances are nobody in here has the power to change your company's formal evaluation system. Right? That's fine. Eventually we'll change it. But for now, just keep in mind that clear objectives and real feedback is what they grew up with and what they thrive under. And the once a year performance evaluation is not nearly enough. We need constant and honest feedback. Now, I always apologize because the picture is really positive. It doesn't have to be positive. That is a myth. Yeah, we grew up getting a trophy for showing up, but the biggest thing we grew up with is we grew up playing video games. And the research says that the reason video games are so engaging and so addictive is because they give you constant feedback. So what we need is constant feedback. And constant means weekly. It doesn't have to be formal. A quick one-on-one, hey, you did well this week, I like this and this and this, I didn't like this and this and this. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're heading in this path. Honest. If they don't know what to fix, they won't fix it. So remember that because of their lack of experience as they're coming in, they just don't know any better. They need that feedback. Now, I always have a caveat on this one. When I gave this presentation at Allied in Sacramento, a female director took the advice and went and the female director had grown up in the industry, back when she was one of the very few females, and she had to be tough to make it. And she went and she gave some very direct feedback to one of her female employees, and the other person cried, broke down and cried in front of her. And then the female director came back to me and gave me an earful over my advice to give constant and honest feedback. And so after that, what we did is meaning the Nationwide Young Professional Group that I was a part of, we started giving out this book called Thanks for the Feedback to all the new kids. And basically the book teaches you that feedback is a gift and how to give it and how to receive it. So that ameliorated the problem. I highly recommend it. I would be giving that, if I was running orientation for my company, I would be giving that to every new employee on day one and encourage them to understand that feedback is a gift. And that way we don't have crying episodes. Okay. Another thing we can do is moving from any How I Met Your Mother fans? Good. Excuse me. Moving from a task-based to a challenge-based type of day-to-day. Okay. If you bring a new millennial and you put him in front of a system that counts the number of tasks that they do, and that's the main way they get measured, you're gonna lose them quickly. They're gonna get bored. They thrive on challenges. Bring them in and challenge them to help you change the industry, to help you change the agency, to help you carry the industry into the 21st century. Challenge them to help you raise the customer service scores. We thrive on challenge. Also, I don't know if I have a slide about it afterwards. The mission, the mission. We have, if we worked at Bank of America or Wells Fargo now, and we were trying to attract millennials, it'd be very hard to sell them on the mission. What is the mission? Making money, right? It's not something that really resonates with them. But remember from the surveys, they want to see themselves as making a positive difference in the world. We have that in insurance. We just need to make sure they know it. We just need to make sure that they can see the connection between whatever their entry-level day job is and what the company is doing as a whole, how we're helping people protect their lives, how we're helping people get back up when they fall or when something happens. Making that connection explicit is important. For years, I thought that the difference between Facebook and Google and some of the other companies that come up in number 1 or number 2 spot, Apple, in where millennials want to work at when they get surveyed, I thought that the big difference between them and us was money. And then I talked to a lot of millennials. I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years, met a lot of Facebook and Google employees and Apple employees, and I've come to the conclusion that it's not about the money. It's about the mission. When they get hired into a Facebook or a Google, they get indoctrinated in what we're doing is changing the world. What we're doing is helping the world connect. What we're doing is helping the organizing the world's information. Those missions really sell, and they're one of the big differences. How companies like that manage to get millennials to bleed for the company and to work all-nighters for the company, and we have a hard time getting them to stay till 3:30. So really selling that mission is a huge part of it. Also, ask for their opinion. It doesn't matter if you don't follow it. Asking for it. We grew up with our parents, our coaches, our counselors, etc., constantly asking for our opinion. I think I'm a great example of that. My parents were divorced, and I'm the oldest child. When my mom was purchasing her first home, and I was about 10 or 11, I had a big part in that decision. And I think a lot of us grew up in that kind of setting where we were constantly asked for our opinion. So ask for our opinion, even if you can't follow it. Give us feedback on it. But just asking really makes us feel like we're part of the team. It really makes us feel like we have a voice. This is the biggest one. Become a mentor. The biggest thing in common. The top 30 companies, according to surveys, where millennials want to work at, the top thing they have in common is formal mentoring programs. Companies like Teach for America don't pay very much. Formal mentoring programs, great mission. Become a mentor. When you get back into the office, go find a young employee, hopefully somebody who's not yet a CPCU. If they're in a processing center or call center, even better. The more boring the job, the better. Find somebody who looks promising, get them excited about the industry, get them excited about CPCU. Transfer that knowledge before you retire. If you become a mentor, we'll let you retire. Help them see the possible career paths. This is big. We are really bad as a generation filling in the blanks, right? And that's why you have kids show up and want to be vice president on day 2 and think that they're going to be vice president on year 2. We just don't know any better. Help us see the path. One of the ways you do that is in your LinkedIn profile, fill in every job you've had. Because what we do, when we find somebody that we admire, we'll go look at their LinkedIn profile to try to figure out how they did it so we can learn from it. So if your LinkedIn profile says Gallagher, vice president, last 30 years, that doesn't tell me how you made it. So make it very explicit, both when you have those conversations with your mentees and when by the way, every time you take a picture, I want to pose. No, I'm just joking. No, keep going. I'm just joking.
You get a post one afterwards.
Awesome. No, I love that you're engaged and taking pictures. I can get you a copy of the presentation. It'll be on YouTube by tomorrow.
Well, for me as well.
Awesome. And several other versions are already on YouTube. Okay. So help them see that path, so that they have a better idea of how to get to where they want to be. Assume good intentions and lack of experience, especially because of how inexperienced many of us are when we get to our first professional job. So again, assume that we're trying to do our best, we just don't know. Make it very explicit.
Okay.
McKinsey Consulting, one of the hardest places to get into to work. It's harder to get into McKinsey than it is to get into Harvard. And in their careers website for MBAs, when you apply, they tell you how to dress for the interview. They tell you the type of questions they're going to ask you. They tell you to look them straight in the eyes, to shake their hands. They tell you every step that you would think is just obvious, because they've realized that if you don't, you might miss out on somebody who's great and just haven't had that advice. Okay. And this is a huge one, and by the way, this is here not only because this is a CPCU event and because I'm a giant CPCU nerd. It is here at every talk I ever give, regardless of whether it's CPCU or not. It was there at the Ohio Insurance Education Day, etc. If you get them started on CPCU, if they finish CPCU, they will not leave the industry because they are more valuable here than they will be elsewhere. I have met hundreds and hundreds of young new designees while working the open house with Jerry. Out of those hundreds, one has left the industry. I don't know if Jerry, have you met a lot that have left the industry after they get the CPCU? One. And him and his wife had a dream of opening a pizza place. And they did. It's actually in Atlanta, very close to where I live. People with CPCUs don't leave the industry. Traditionally, people do CPCUs later in their career. If we can get them started earlier, they won't leave the industry. They might leave the company, but they'll stay in the industry, and that's half the battle. So tell them about CPCU, get them excited about it. It's a career maker, as I'm sure all of you know. Get them excited about it. Also, make good enough not acceptable. A lot of the entry-level jobs in the industry have been trimmed down to the point that a high schooler can do it, and we're staffing them with college grads because of the availability of college grads. So, millennials thrive on challenge. Don't make it easy, make it interesting. Make it challenging. And you're gonna get much better results. Give them a good name to live up to, like Dale Carnegie says, or said. And a lot of them will live up to that name. Give them an easy job, they'll just get disengaged. So, that's all for the actual presentation. Let's keep the conversation going. Add me on LinkedIn. I'm always available to speak both to your young employees or to your managers about how to manage those young employees. INS Nerds, check it out. It's free. It's a labor of love. It's not my full-time job. And what we do is we blog about how to retain your millennials, how to engage them. A lot of articles for the millennials on how to grow in the industry. We also blog about how technology might affect the industry in the future, and a lot of CPCU related stuff. Anyway, get them reading INS Nerds. They'll stay for longer because we'll get them really excited about the industry. I do have one more survey, and if anybody has questions, please raise your hand and we'll answer them. But I do have one more survey question. After all, remember the feedback thing is big. So, and again, it's anonymous. I don't know who voted what. What did you think of the presentation today? Bad, good, better for very good, or best for excellent? So don't be afraid to hurt my feelings. I'm always trying to improve it. This is maybe the 6th or 7th time that I've done it. It's scheduled twice next year already. Once at the RISC conference in Richmond, Virginia, and once at the NAMIC annual conference, NAMIC Personalized Conference in Chicago, Illinois. I'm always open to doing it wherever else. Questions, comments. Was it interesting?
Yes.
Was it fun?
Yes, it was.
Awesome. Was it worth the drive?
Yes. Awesome.
Awesome. I think I went through it a little faster today than I normally do, probably because of the smaller crowd. So thank you very much, everybody.